Now, this is some article that I've been wanting to review. Like probably one of my first videos I wanted to make, but I never really made it. I think most of the results are still valid. Um, Let me see if this is the same one that I was talking about. Yeah. Okay. So I think most of these results are still pretty valid for this year. It's 5 years old, but I think if you come to the conclusions that I've come, they're mostly the same of things that are going on today. Um, so this is the Pew Research Center, the trends and patterns in intermarriage. I looked at every single word and every single chart. Like I said a long time ago, I never made a video, so if it's old news to you, it's old news. But so trends and patterns in intermarriage is the first chapter. Now I see the chart now that since 1967, it says a steady rise in intermarriage in the U.S. Um, yeah, so it's been steadily rising for newlyweds to be intermixing on a good linear trend since 1967. It was 3% at that time, and now it's like 17%, or probably now it's like 18 or 19, 18%. Um, a huge spike after 2006. So that makes sense because there's been a lot of interracial commercials since the 2000s, mid 2000s. Because I see like a big spike after 2000s. Um, and the commercials are kind of just blasted everywhere now. It's like I never, when I was growing up, I'd see some like 90s commercials. I'd see like black woman with a black man or a white woman with a white man. Like the commercials clearly kind of this let you know that there were different cultures in America and then they kind of did their own thing. Um, and obviously, if there was interracial, it's usually a white guy with a different any race he picks. But since like growing up, that thing has kind of died, and especially in the last 5 years, like they're mixing everyone. Um, I'll even give them credit. Like they've been putting like some Asian men, some Hispanic men, because for a while it was mostly just white men and black men. Um, Now there were Asian and Hispanic men are still low T, like still like very few numbers though in general, but it is kind of picking up. But just overall interracial, like the commercials have been blasting the past 5 years, especially black women and white men. Like that has been everywhere um, on TV. Like I've been seeing so much more black women, white men on like every single commercial the past 5 6 years, which is interesting. And then a white guy Asian girl has been blasted like since like 20 years ago. I remember. So yeah, and then black man, white woman, that has kind of gone down compared to like 20 years ago. The commercials. So the people in the media have kind of flipped it a bit, but you still see them. You still see them a lot though. It's almost normalized, just like the white man Asian girl thing. Um, Next chapter, they're saying the intermarriage varies by race and ethnicity. Um, so yeah, I see I'm aligned with this one as well. I mean, it's kind of isn't interesting. So for whites, 1980 it was at 4%. In 2015 it tripled to or almost tripled to like 12%, 11, 12%. They have to remember they're starting at such a low point. The blacks were just the loyalty or the intramarriage within themselves is very strong, just like whites in the 1980, 81. But it spiked much higher than whites, and it went to like 18% by 2015. I can see that too. Their loyalty at that time was really good. Their cohesiveness was really good. And it's just been brutal since like the 80s with the drugs, the music. So the men and women have been opting out. Whites as well, but whites is not that strong. Whites kind of intermixing out has been not that strong. I mean, yeah, a lot of white guys got priced out of white women, but for the most part, white women are decently loyal. But if you're like a low tier white, then yeah, you get priced out. Um, Now for Hispanics, it's gone from 1980. Hispanics like almost no change. 1980 it was 26%. In 2015, 27%. So almost kind of no change. I don't even want to know if there's something to say about that one. I guess it's been steady. Plus, people that identify as Hispanic are usually first generation or second. Once it's third or fourth, a lot of them mix out and they're white by that time, or could be black, or yeah. Asian 1980 was at 33%. Now that must have been brutal times, and it's declined since then at a linearly to 29% 2015. So it's still pretty high. It's higher than all the other races, but it has declined. So they're marrying themselves more, Asian men and Asian women, which is I think is a good thing. I mean, probably that time, a lot of Asian women were marrying out, and I don't know, I don't know. It doesn't say the men or the women, but just there has been more resurgence of them marrying themselves. So I mean, 4% in 20 years, but it's something. Let's see. The changing ethnic profile of U.S. newlyweds is linked to growth in intermarriage. That is true. So when it comes to newlyweds, the rising share are Hispanic or Asian, and then white newlyweds are on the decline. Yeah, I mean whites are still the vast majority. So whites have been since 1980 like at 81%, and then have dropped to 66%. So now they're 66% of the newlyweds. They're still massively bigger than the other races, but it's a decent decline. Um, Blacks 9% 1980, and then 2015 still 9%. So no really increase or decrease when it comes to the newlywed um, ratio, which is actually decently good. Um, yeah, better than I thought. But they are a decently small percentage. Asians 1980 was like 2% of the newlyweds. This is also have to do with population as well. Yet this is a percentage of all newlyweds. So blacks are still the same percentage. Asians were only 2% in 1980, and now they're 6%. That's like a triple increase in Asians, and they're marrying each other, which I see as well in the colleges. I mean, Asians women are mostly finding an Asian guy, especially when it comes to marrying. Now, I don't know about partying and all that and banging around, but when it comes to marrying, they do find an Asian guy, um, um, like 2/3 or more of the time. So Asians have grown up to 6% of the newlywed ratio. Hispanics were only 8% in 1980 of all the newlyweds, and now they're 17%. Now a lot of that might be more reporting, and there might be more reported, but they have multiplied. At least there's a twofold increase in the newlywed in the what they're documenting as a marriage, and so now there's 17%. Whites are now 66%. So yeah, they're that is true. Yeah, Hispanics or Asians are more likely to have um, um, they're more on the rise when it comes to new marriages, and then blacks neutral, whites on the slight decline. For blacks and Asians, big gender gaps in intermarriage. I mean, yeah, this is kind of nothing new, but so when it comes to whites, the men outmarry at 12%, the white woman outmarry at 10%. So kind of the same rate in my opinion. I don't even want to say there's much anything to note about that. Hispanics, the men outmarry at 26%, and then the Hispanic woman outmarry at 28%. So also kind of not much to report about that. I would expect more just because of money, and Hispanic woman, just finding a richer guy usually could be like a white guy or Asian guy, or usually a white guy just because of colonial and all that. But for the most part, whites and Hispanics are kind of the same in their intermarriage gender, the ratio of the intermarriage from each gender. Blacks, the men outmarry at 24%, the black woman outmarry at 12%. So two times as much as the woman. So black women are just as loyal as white women. Well, 10%, 12%. Yeah, pretty much just as loyal as white women. Um, Despite what you see on the commercials, despite what you. Now, this is kind of old. This is 4-year-old data. But I agree. Like in places where there's not many blacks, especially where California, like I see a lot of, like, I see a black girl with a white guy. I see it kind of, it definitely sticks out, and it definitely happens. But when there's like black areas, I wouldn't be surprised if there's just black women are loyal to black men. Obviously, maybe Pookie Ray Rays, but yeah. So just as loyal as white women, but the men are marrying two times out than the woman. Now Asians, men are out marrying at 21%, which is still less than Hispanic men by 5%. It's still a little less, but the women are out marrying at 36%. So that's not double the men. It's almost double because double is 42%. So it's almost double the men when it comes to the newlywed intermarriage percentage. So yeah, yeah, black men and Asian women are kind of like two times marrying outside their race for the newlyweds. Um, some of this stuff is like same old, but some of this stuff is kind of interestingly new in a way. A growing educational gap in intermarriage. Now that this is I found kind of interesting. Intermarriage rises more with those at least some college experience. Um, yeah, that's very true. A lot of people I know that didn't go to college, they kind of just married their like a white trailer, not trailer trash, but white kind of low tier white girl marrying like some white guy that didn't go to college and smokes cigarettes. Like that's very normal. Hispanics, same thing, like the Hispanic girl, and sometimes they're very cute too, like a Hispanic girl who's like young and doesn't really study, that doesn't really have a degree, marries like some Hispanic factory worker. I think the same thing with Asians, but they don't really have that low education kind of culture too much, but it's still present. Um, I don't know, Cambodians, Vietnamese. Uh, yeah, so I see that a lot when it's like they don't go to college; they kind of just stick with their own. But when they go to college, like there's a lot of out marriage, a lot of out marriage, interracial marriages going on. Um, so for a bachelor's degree, it's the highest, 19%. Some college, whether they just go to college or think of college, that's when they really outmarry, or 18, 19%. That's 2015 though. That's the interesting part is like to 1980, even if they went to college, they still kind of married their own. Races still kind of married their own. It's like an 8%, 7%. But 2015, now, if you go to college, 1/5 of you are going to marry out. So it's very different than it was 20, 30 years ago, where if you did the college, you still kind of you still kind of stick with your own culture and stuff like that. But now it's like everything's like 1/5 of people are mixing out. But if you go to if it's just high school or less, it's only like 14%. So decently different if you just don't go to college. But everyone's for the most part is going to college these days. So um, yeah, that can probably make sense. I mean, interracial marriage is kind of seen as a educated kind of thing to do. So it's it is interesting. Strong link between education and intermarriage for Hispanics. This is kind of very kind of black pillish. Among blacks and Hispanics, college graduates are most likely to intermarry. So that makes a lot of sense because if you look at the white and Asian, or at least, okay, let's just go by this. If you look at the white rate, whether it's high school, college, bachelor's degree, like the intermarriage rate is the same. It's 10, 11, 10, 11, 12, 10. And their loyalty rates are kind of decently the same. Um, oh, okay. I find different trends than the title, but so white trends are they're decently the same whether they go to college or not. For blacks, it goes decently higher on a steady incline. Um, 15% to 17 to 21. This is high school to college to more like bachelor degree plus. Um, so blacks do start intermarrying decently more, especially once they have like a master's or graduate degree, it seems. Um, that makes sense because they're very underrepresented in that, and when it comes more than like a bachelor's or just a bachelor's in general, but more than a bachelor's for sure. Now, I'll leave, and then Asians is also pretty big. Asians is big off the start. This is the funny thing. Asians and Hispanics have different kind of trends. Asians, 26%, even if it's just high school, intermarry out. Um, and then Hispanics, like, it's like 16%, just high school. So Hispanics are like loyal like blacks, I guess, at that rate. But the thing is with Asians, um, when they go to some college, they're at 39% intermarrying out. Like 40% of the people of the Asians are intermarrying out, um, of the newlyweds. But for Hispanics, it's almost at the same rate, 35%. So honestly, just like maybe 5% lagging, but almost to the same degree as Asians when it comes to intermarriage. Intermarriage, if the Hispanic guy or girl. Now they don't have genders on here, but yeah, if the Hispanic guy or girl goes to college, it like doubles the effect of him marrying out. Um, so there's a big loyalty factor for Hispanics if they don't go to college, but if they go to college, it's like the loyalty thing is out the door, very out the door, and it explodes at a graduate degree. The graduate degree intermarriage rate for Hispanics is 46%, so half of the Hispanics marry out if they get a graduate degree. It's funnily enough for the Asians, it kind of goes back down to like 29%. So the Asians is kind of consolidating around the 30% for high school, college, or bachelor. They don't change their mindset. But the Hispanics, there's a huge mindset change if they go to college, and another huge mindset change if they get like a graduate degree. Like they just constantly want to get out of the high school rate, the high school percentage, which is just 16%. Um, so yeah, huge mindset changes when Hispanics go to college. That's all, and they really want to. They really, it's like they really will intermarry if they go to college, and the more they go, the more they want to intermarry. They want to date out. They don't want to date their own men, or they want to date their own women. Let's see. I'll put 10 minutes. Now, for blacks, intermarriage has increased most among those with no college experience. I'm not sure if I want to cover that, or let's see. Gender gap in intermarriage higher for those for some college or more. Yeah, this is kind of interesting. So for men and women, so the women all hover around 10% when it comes to intermarrying out. Like they're more loyal, at least for the stats, they're more loyal than a lot of people might think. But the men from high school, they start at 17%, and there's a steady incline for college and bachelor degree plus for go to 30%. So black men, the more they get educated, the more they don't want black women. And the black women, even if they get more educated, they still want black men around the same rate, according to the stats. According to the stats, of course, they do want black men a little less when they get a graduate degree. But the black men disinterest in black women is just much more massive with education. Asians with come college are the most likely to intermarry. Dramatic decline in intermarriage among least educated Asians. Yeah, yeah. So I mean, that's kind of what I saw in the first graph. When Asians have college, they intermarry at around like 30%. Um, oh, I see what this graph. So pretty much what's happening is that for Asians that aren't really going to college, like high school, just high school level, at the time before around 1980, like 40% of them, 36% of them married out. But now, 2015, and I don't know, beyond, that has dramatically declined. So lower educated Asians are much more loyal to each other. At the same time, the divergence happened between higher educated Asians. Since 1980, back then, they were more loyal to each other. But especially the bachelor degree in the college. But now they have wanted to, their loyalty factors has declined a good amount since 20, 30 years ago. And they want to intermarry out more. Um, yeah, that makes sense because college, like I said, is being seen as like a intermarrying is kind of seen like as a college as an education statement. So that's kind of something that's kind of put out there along with yeah. So yeah, the educated Asians are becoming less loyal. And the lower educated Asians are becoming more loyal. Among whites, little difference in intermarriage rates of education level. Yeah, that's what I pretty much kind of what I stated. There's not really a mindset change, a mindset shift when it comes to whites in college too much. I think yeah to the stats. Intermarriage slightly less common at older ages. Yeah, 1980, slight decline in intermarriage. So 1980s. Let me try to understand this. 15 years, 30 years, 20. So they've all been around 10%. But nowadays, it's much higher. Wait, intermarried? All ages. 2000. It has doubled. Oh, there we go. Nearly 1 in 5 newlyweds in their 30s are married to someone at a different race and ethnicity. 60%. Oh, here's the graph. Across race and ethnicity, age patterns of intermarriage vary. This is kind of fun. Yeah. Everything is kind of like at the same level. I mean, blacks used to be really loyal, the ones in their 50s. And then like the young 15 to 29-year-olds are just gone not skyrocket, but decently went up. The out marriage rates. Whites have been the same loyalty level since like the teenagers to the old people. Like their loyalty levels around the same. Um, it is going slightly lower recently. Um, Blacks have been intermarrying out, especially these last 10 years. Hispanics intermarriage rates used to be higher back for the older people a little bit, but for the most part, it's kind of consolidating around 26%. Asians is Now this is the really interesting thing. Like Asians, 50 plus, only 32%, 30, 31%. But the big disparity is the Gen X. The Gen X Asians were screwed. The 40 to 49, the intermarriage rate is like 42%, highest ever. This makes sense because this was a good bottom for Asian men, I think, when it comes to their sex appeal, especially before China's rise. So before any strong pump in anything, there's a big good bottom, and that was a really sad bottom for them around the Gen X area. 42% of them were intermarrying, and I think most of that was a woman. Um, and then all the Mad TV, Ken Jeong, all that. And I personally know like some 40-year-old Asian men, they're still looking for a wife or something, and um, yeah, it's just unfortunate timing. But then the interesting thing is now the 15 to 29 years old, the intermarriage is just as the same as Hispanic, even like 1% lower than the Hispanics. So like 25% versus 26%, which I don't know, it could be data, but it's around the same level as Hispanics now. It is, you know, went to the same rate. Um, Millennials, it was still higher than Hispanics, and then the younger millennials, Gen Z, it's becoming just as the loyalty factor is just as equal to the Hispanics. Meanwhile, 20 years ago it was worse, much worse. And blacks is starting to go up. Blacks used to be around 18%, 16, 18, but now they're going to like the 20s. So yeah, blacks are intermarrying a lot out. And like, yeah, let's see. Intermarriage more common in metro areas. Well, yeah, that makes sense. 20% versus like around 7%. Um, yeah. In metro areas, so very populated cities, Asians, let's see, whites in metro areas outmarry double the effect of them in like suburbs. That makes sense. Hispanics, they marry a little less in metro areas than in suburbs. That makes sense. I mean, Hispanics, when in metro areas, usually are consisted of more poor folks, and they kind of marry each other. Blacks, the same level, whether they're metro area or they're suburbs, they're marrying out at 18%. Asians is interesting. Metro city areas, they're marrying out 28%. But in suburb areas, places where there's not much of probably diversity, they outmarry at 47%. Now, I don't want to blame this all on the woman, could be men too, but the Asian person in the suburb area or away from the cities, probably less diversity, they outmarry really quickly. One in two Asian people marry out. Um, and Hispanics is like 32%. So the suburb effect is real on Asian and Hispanics, mostly Asians, but it is still real. Um, yeah, and blacks are decently neutrally loyal on both ends. Um, last section. I'm not gonna go to the other pages. The other pages are more like public views and all that stuff on perception and all that. This is just stats. The largest share of intermarried couples includes one Hispanic and one white spouse. Yeah. Uh, yeah, white Hispanic, Hispanic wife 22%, white wife, Hispanic husband 20%. And that's like 42% of all intermarried couples in the stats. So you can talk about Asians, blacks, but when it comes to the most popular intermarriage rate in America, it's whites and Hispanics on both ends. Um, Next one is 15%, so almost like what, one third of that Hispanic white combo. It's white and Asian, white guy, Asian girl. Um, yeah, and then 12%. Oh yeah, white and Asian, and then Hispanic. No, the white husband, Hispanic. I mean, white husband, Asian wife is 11%. So almost three times the amount of Asian husband, white wife. And then he's got these smaller stats. The white multiracial is kind of the same. Usually it's more so the white husband and a multiracial wife. White black husband and white wife is like two times the amount than the other side. Hispanic black is interesting. Four times you're more likely to see a black man, Hispanic wife, than a Hispanic husband, white black wife. And you see that effect in LA, I think. I think that's it for the most part. Small stats. All right.